Alright, hey guys, in this video we're just going to start looking at fractions and some of the basic operations of fractions. And so before we get started with the operations, let's just kind of talk about what is a fraction. And so let's just say we have a pizza, and we're going to split this pizza up into 4 equal sections. And so now if I give you one slice of pizza, okay, so if I give you one slice of pizza, then that means you have one piece out of the possible 4 slices, and so you have 1/4 of the pizzas. Okay, and so this top number of our fraction, this top number, is referred to as the numerator, and the bottom number here is referred to as the denominator. So make sure you familiarize yourself with the terms of a fraction. Okay, so let's say somebody else comes along and they take 2 slices of the pizza. So what fraction represents the part of the pizza that they took? Well, they took 2 other slices out of the 4 total, and so they took 2/4 of the pizza. And so another way that you can think about fractions is being a part, so taking a part of a whole. All right, so taking part of the whole amount that you have. Right, so parts to a whole is another way to define a fraction. All right, so now let's look at some of the basic operations dealing with fractions. All right, so here we're just going to start looking at adding and subtracting fractions. So let's say we have 3/8 plus 2/8, and we want to add these together. So now with fractions, anytime we add and subtract fractions, these bottom numbers, these denominators, they must be the same number. Okay. Once they're the same number, you're good. You're good to go to proceed. But first, they have to be the same number. So in this case, yeah, they are the same number. And so what this says is, hey, that's your denominator and your answer. So we're just going to bring our 8 over, and now we just add or subtract according to our operation the 2 numerators. So 3 plus 2 is 5, and so we just get 5/8 as our answer. All right, so let's try another one. Let's say we have 3/4 plus 6/4. Again, denominators are the same, so we're just going to bring that 4 over. And now add the 2 top numbers. 3 plus 6 is 9. And so we just get 9/4. Right? And it's okay that the top number is greater than the bottom number. What we have here are examples of proper and improper fractions. Proper fractions are just where the top number is smaller than the denominator. So 5/8, this would be what we call a proper fraction. And then an improper fraction is when this top number is greater than or equal to the bottom number. So 9/4 would actually be considered an improper fraction. Okay, so again, some definitions that you might want to familiarize yourself with. Alright, but what happens when that bottom number is not the same? Okay, so let's say now we have 3/8, and we want to add that to 3/4. Okay. So now if we look, now my 2 denominators are not the same. One's an 8, one's a 4. Well, what we have to do is we have to get the LCD, least common denominator, of these 2. So it's the smallest number that each one of our denominators will go into. And so if we think about the smallest numbers that 8 and 4 will go into, it is 8. And so my LCD in this case is 8. Well, the 3/8 is already has 8 as its denominator, so I don't have to do anything with it. So I'm just going to carry it over. And now I got to figure out, well, how can I get that 3/4? How can I get that to be something over 8? So I know I want it to be an 8, but how can I go from 4 to 8? Well, we just simply multiply it by 2. But the rule is, if you multiply the bottom number by 2, you also have to multiply this top number by 2, so that really you're multiplying it by the value of 1, so you're not changing the value of your fraction. And 3 times 2 is 6. And so now it's like our previous problem where our 2 denominators are the same, so we're ready to just bring our denominator over and add the tops. 3 plus 6 is 9, and so we get 9/8 as our answer to 3/8 plus 3/4. Alright, same thing with subtraction. So let's try one subtraction problem. We have 5/8 minus 1/3. Again, we got to get the LCD. The LCD in this case is what's my smallest number that 8 and 3 will both go into, and that is actually 24. And so now we're going to have to change both. Well, we go from 8 to 24, we multiply it by 3. So I also got to multiply the top by 3. And so that gives me 15 over 24. And now to go from 3 to 24, we multiply it by 8. So I also multiply the top by 8. And so that gives me 8 over 24. And now that becomes my new problem. Okay, so 15 over 24 minus 8 over 24. If we do the math there, we wind up getting 15 minus 8 is 7 over 24. And so that's our answer there. All right, now let's talk briefly about simplifying fractions. Anytime we're given a fraction, we want to see if there's anything that the two numbers have in common that we can divide out. And if we notice here, both of these numbers are even, so I know they're both at least divisible by 2. So I'm just going to divide each one by 2. And when I do that, I'm left with 20 divided by 2 is 10. And then 50 divided by 2 is 25. But if we look there, I can reduce it a little further. I know that each one of these numbers is divisible by 5. So I'm going to divide each one of these by 5. And that's going to leave me with 2 over 5. And that is the lowest terms for 20 over 50. All right, so let's try one more. Let's say we have 64 over 100. Again, I know that both of these are even, so I know they're both at least divisible by 2. So divide each one by 2, we get 32 over 50. All right, we can do it one more time because they're both even again. So divide each one by 2. And we wind up getting 16 over 25. There's nothing in common between 16 and 25, so that means this fraction is written in lowest terms. All right, next let's look at multiplying and dividing fractions. So here we have 3/4 times 4/7. With multiplying and dividing fractions, you don't have to have that common denominator like we do with adding and subtracting. So all you have to do is just take your two top numbers, multiply them together. So multiply top times top, and we get 12. And then multiply the bottom times the bottom, and we get 28. But if we remember back to simplifying fractions, again, this can be reduced. Divide each one of these by 2. We get 6 over 14. Divide each one of these by 2 again, and we get 3 over 7. And so that's our final answer. All right, and then dividing fractions is very similar to multiplying fractions. So let's say we have 3/4, and we want to divide that by 7/8. Okay, the thing with dividing is we can't just divide these. We have to multiply by the reciprocal. So what that means is we have to keep the first fraction the way it is. So I'm just going to keep the 3/4. But then I'm going to turn that division into multiplication. And then we're going to multiply by the reciprocal. The reciprocal of a number is just when you flip a number. So instead of 7 over 8, we want the reciprocal of that, and that would give me 8 over 7. And now it's just a multiplication problem. Multiply straight across. We get 3 times 8 is 24. 4 times 7 is 28. And now it's just a matter of reducing. Divide each one by 2. We get 12 over 14. Divide each one by 2 again, and we wind up getting 6 over 7 as our final answer. So anytime you're asked to divide fractions, I want you to remember 3 words. Keep, change, flip. Keep, change, flip. That's how you divide fractions. You keep your first fraction the way it is. You're going to change this division here to multiplication. And then flip, you're going to take your fraction and you're going to flip it and multiply by the reciprocal. All right, so that's how you divide fractions. All right, and that's pretty much it for fractions. We kind of looked at the basic operations. The only other thing I really want to look at is when it comes to mixed numbers and improper fractions. I want us to briefly talk about that. We talked about improper fractions a little bit, but we didn't talk about mixed numbers, and so let's do that. All right, so all a mixed number is just when you take a whole number and a fraction and you put them together. So just for an example, 1 and 1/2, that's a mixed number. We don't tend to deal with mixed numbers too much. We tend to keep improper fractions in that form. But if you want to turn a mixed number into an improper fraction, to do that, you just take this 1, your whole number here. So we're going to take our whole number of 1. We're going to multiply it times the denominator. And then we're going to add 1 to that. we're going to add the numerator. So you take your whole number, so we take our whole number, we multiply it times the denominator, and then we take that answer and we add the numerator to it. So when we do that, we get 1 times 2 is 2, plus 1 is 3. And then you keep your denominator the way it is. So we're just going to keep the 2. And so 3 over 2, that is the improper fraction that represents the mixed number 1 and 1/2. Okay, so let's try one more of these. So let's say we have 6 and 2/3. So again, we're just going to multiply. 6 times 3 is 18, plus the numerator is 20, keeping our denominator the same, and we get 20 over 3. All right, in order to go from improper fraction back to a mixed number, we just divide the two numbers. So let's say we want to take 33 over 5, and we want to turn that back into a mixed number. So we're just going to divide here. We're going to take 5, divide it into 33. Well, 5 goes into 33 6 times. 6 times 5 is 30, and we have a remainder of 3. And so your quotient here, your quotient becomes your whole number. Your remainder becomes the numerator of your fraction, and then your denominator just stays the same as whatever you divided by, which in this case is 5. So 33 over 5 is the same as 6 3/5. And that's how we go from mixed numbers to improper fractions, and we go from improper fractions back to a mixed number. And that really concludes our fractions lessons. If you need any more help, after you practice some of the practice problems, just let me know, and I'll be happy to go in more detail with you.